My Volkswagen sputters and dies. Why? Why does that happen? What the heck is going on? Some of you might say that from time to time, right? It's because your Volkswagen is sputtering and dying. You're not crazy, but it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes it happens when I get to a stoplight. Sometimes it barely happens at all, but the engine doesn't sound quite right? All right, so here's the deal. I'm gonna show you the basics of diagnostic and the one most common failure that I find as a Volkswagen classic restorationist and mechanic. Wow, that was a mouthful. Join me on this journey of, it's the intake manifold boot. There's no journey here. Boots and cats and boots and cats and yeah. All right, let me show you what I'm talking about. We have a glorious day right now. There's a freight train going by. It's a beautiful 64 degrees right now. Probably 66 with the sun. The real feel, man. You know what I'm talking about? That real feel. Real feel. And this is a lovely little car that I built the engine for a couple of years ago, and it's been going strong since, but it doesn't get a lot of miles. And unfortunately, there's a fading off in some of the parts qualities these days, right? And the rubber boots and cats and gaskets are part of the problem. The cats, rarely. Cats are usually pretty well manufactured. The boots and the gaskets, though, those can be a problem. Hot and cold cycling of the engine, right? You've got the bonnet down. Yeah, you got some louvers here, but they're not going to do much to let that heat out. So every time you drive the car and then you park it in a relatively dry garage, something like that, you're heat cycling all the rubber in there. It's getting up to temperature. It's getting nice and hot, nice and warm, where it's going to be extra supple, and then it's getting the life sucked out of it. And with just the nature of where things are at parts-wise, unfortunately, I've seen quite a few of the new reproduction boots that get dry. The silicone rubber ones can be okay. These ones, unfortunately, are not the silicone rubber ones. These are just sort of a standard rubber reproduction boot. The silicone rubber ones, the problem with them is sometimes that they tear. Like when you're tightening the hose clamp down on it, it'll tear. But hey, man, what can you do, right? So here, check this out. I'll run you through it. That's what I'm talking about right there. The intake manifold boot. This puppy. And like I said, you can massage super lube around it, specifically this area here. So this is stepped. There's a small side and a big side. It's kind of obvious. And then there's this blank off kind of spot in between that steps between the two. And it's sort of an accordion shape. So a lot of times right on this flat here is where you get an air leak and you get dry rot around there. And it can be really tricky to buck that. I mean, it can be hard to figure it out. It can be hard to prevent it. Sometimes the hose clamps themselves will pierce into the rubber and they'll cause a dry rot condition or some sort of a, broken kind of a seal. And you can kind of see down here that there's that happening and going on. I'm going to warm the engine up, and then when it's at idle, you'll hear it stumbling. And I'm going to show you guys what happens when I spray a little starter fluid on it, which is kind of the poor man's way to get a solid diagnostic on this. It's not even so much the poor man's way. It's just a good way. And then down in here is the other intake manifold boot. And it'll do kind of a similar thing. This edge here will get dry rotted, and then you'll start sucking a little air around your intake. And that's no bueno. It's not going to work out well for you. It's going to cause stumbling and all that kind of stuff. So let me warm it up here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so we're almost warmed up here. We're on one of the last stages of choke. And you can hear the engine's like relatively smooth, but it's not completely smooth yet. And it won't. It's going to get rougher and rougher. So with a vacuum leak, generally speaking, you might have some sputtering when you're driving if it's bad enough. But if it's a slight one, most of your problems are going to be at idle. This thing accelerates just fine, right? But when it returns down to idle, it's going to stumble and have some issues. All right, there's our vacuum leak. Right there. We're crashing and burning. We're coming back up. We're going to crash and burn again. We're going to come back up. So where is that, right? I'm telling you it's this intake manifold boot. Why? Because I already know it is. Oh, hey, right there. Listen to the sound of the engine, right? Gonna crash and burn. Spikes right up when I spray it with a little bit of starter fluid. This side I haven't checked yet. Doing it on that side as well. So both these intake manifold boots, Kaputskis. Now other places you might check for a vacuum leak. Vacuum plugs, vacuum hoses, leaky throttle plate. Throttle plate's always going to leak a little bit, but not enough that it's actually sucking real air in there, right? These guys, these are bad. We have the new replacement boots. These are nice high quality boots. They're Dansk, which is Denmark, where the company's based. It's kind of a silicone rubber, like I was talking about earlier. It's got a good coloration to it, very similar to the original color. Not that that matters much because this isn't really an original car. But you know, it's nice when things look appropriate and correct. So we're gonna get in on replacing these boots, and I'll show you kind of the what's what of it all. First things first, got to remove all of this stuff. These elements are just for your heat to get into the cabin when you're running heat. So some of you guys aren't going to have these at all. This car has it. And it's a little different what I'm doing today because I don't normally do like how-to videos, but I thought it would just be fun because this happens to a lot of Beetles. It just makes sense to kind of show the process that's involved in correcting it. So the goal here is to loosen the entire intake manifold and the manifold castings on both ends. And in order to do that, we have to unbolt these stoker pipes that go to the exhaust. It's a little bit of a pain if you have that style. Some vehicles will have the stoker pipes cut off of them, but you're supposed to have them because your carburetor is supposed to get warmed up, and it helps keep the fuel atomized when the stoker pipes are in place. They warm the manifold and kind of help everything stay in a good and groovy way. Okay, so the whole point of taking all those off and the covers for the stoker pipes and everything is that there's bolts back here to these preheater pipes, the stoker pipes as I'm calling them. And we've got to pull up and get this breastplate out of position. This is the front pulley plate, if you will. Voila, nice and uninstalled. Set that off to the side. And now we can see that we've got bolts on the stoker pipes on both sides. These ones have 10mm heads. Now some of these have 11mm heads. I, as before mentioned, built this engine up, and so I know what some of this hardware is in advance. So that's one reason why I had the jump start on that. But a lot of times, for whatever mix of reasons, there'll be 11mm bolts that are implemented on here. That's what comes with a lot of the hardware kits. So just be prepared for that with an 11mm socket. I've got a 10mm socket on these ones because they're 10 mils, like I said, and around 1/4 inch with an extension just to keep everything nice and clear and free for ample swing room. And if you are foreign to doing this, you're going to want to keep track of all your hardware. If you're like me and you do it like 10 times a day, then why are you watching this video? You do not need to know what I'm showing you right now, unless it's just for the pure entertainment of watching someone else wrench, which I get. But yeah, keep track of your hardware, because otherwise you could lose it. The bells are ringing. Okay, so stoker pipe loose, stoker pipe loose. So in this situation, these will actually pull out of the manifold, but a lot of times these are welded and secured to your manifold. I am actually going to remove these from the manifold. You'll see there was a little high temp silicone that was employed on this one. There's a little water in there from exhaust water, if you will, condensation. So we'll reapply some high temp silicone to that one to seal it off when we reinsert it. And we'll pull this one out of here too. We'll kind of do the same thing to this one. But the reason why I'm pulling them out is just because it makes it so much easier when it comes time to do what we're about to do, which is jog the manifolds all around. So, manifold casting, carburetor manifold, carburetor, air cleaner, stuff, VW engine stuff. I'm gonna need to grab an extension, and we're gonna use an extension and a 13mm to get at this little bolt that's hiding back in here. It's a little nut, actually, hiding up in there. I'll pop this cap off so you guys can have a better look. And this is the bolt right back here, or the nut right back there that my finger's pointing to. Below this fuel hose, you'll see this nut. Here, I'll come around this side. So it's that nut right there. So a deep socket, or sorry, an extension with a regular socket on it comes in here, and that loosens the manifold support, and that's the manifold support right there. So I'm gonna go and grab an extension and a 13mm. Long extension, I've got a wobble style, and then I've got the socket on here, so we've got a little freedom to play along. Take it the rest of the way by hand. It's a medium tight spot back here. Got a couple of washers stacked up on here as well. Pop the plug wires off. I don't need to take them all the way out. We're just gonna take them off. If you can't remember where things go with that, just label them, but your firing order is always down here on your alternator pedestal, 1, 4, 3, 2. If you know which plug on your cap is, or which port on your cap is plug number 1, then you can just go 1, 4, 3, 2 or around. You guys figure that out. I'll show you in a bit. The next thing, we've got to loosen up the intake manifolds. Now, can't remember what size bolts I used on these. I thought I used step down, or nuts rather. Thought I used step down 10mm nuts, but it's looking like I might have used 12 mils. Generally speaking, from the factory, these over here at the intake manifold castings, they'll be 13mm. These little nuts down here. But I've got some step down ones, and usually when I build an engine, I use a clever step down so that it's a little more swing room, a little bit easier to get at. So let me run and grab more tools that I don't have. Yeah, it would appear that we've got a 12mm that I used on this. So I did use a step down nut to secure the manifold. Sometimes you have to employ the old flipping the wrench strategy. These front-facing ones are the harder ones to do, and when you get it to a certain point, you can just take care of it by finger. There should be a wave washer under it. We're gonna find out. There is, but it doesn't want to pop off of there. It's kind of stuck down, so I'm just gonna leave it on there for a moment. Rear one, much easier to get to. 1/4 inch long extension. Socket size on mine is 12, but again, on yours at home, it's probably gonna be 13. You can reuse these crush gaskets, by the way, on the stoker pipes, but you can also replace them. I'll be replacing mine, but you guys at home may be like, yeah, just reuse it. Why not? Let's see if I can get this washer off of here, because this one freed up a little bit. So play ball with me. There we go. I guess we're keeping sides Pacific in the South Pacific. I don't know any of the really catchy songs from that musical. Insert South Pacific reference songs here. Gonna get down in here on this intake manifold nut. See if we can get at it with this wrench. And if not, the answer seems to be not. We're gonna try just the socket itself on my ratchet. And that just has the room thanks to it being a flex head ratchet. A lot of times, VW and other automotive manufacturers have designed things with tight spaces specifically to irritate you. And the solution to that is to have the proper tools. And it's less irritating overall. And then you've really got them. Whereas they think they're getting you. I don't think it's really for engineering purposes. I think it's just for the fun of life. They've decided to antagonize anyone and everyone who wants to work on their own car. I wish I could go home. It's my neighbor driving home. Done with his day of work. Must be nice. Have fun, Kyle. I'm not really that bitter about it. I don't care. Kyle's a hard-working dude. Hey, look at that. Next up, intake manifold boot clamps. I got a washer off of both of those, by the way, but that was it. Just one washer off each, so there's one still on, so I gotta watch them, make sure they don't fall into the actual intake. Look at how loose this puppy is. Loose. It's very loose. Oh, you know what? I should probably grab a little Allen key too here and disconnect it from the accelerator cable. That would be a good idea for what we're doing. And you will see why in a moment. But for now, I'm gonna loosen up these intake manifold boots. And cats and boots and cats and boots and cats and boots and cats. Basically DJ. And in one momentato, after I loosen that accelerator cable, everyone is going to witness a dry rotted intake manifold boot. What it looks like after it's removed. You know what? It might be fun to just not even loosen the accelerator cable. All right, so for those of you at home who've been following along and are desperate to get this accomplished, I'm gonna tell you to disconnect your throttle cable from right here. But because I'm feeling lazy, I'm not gonna disconnect the throttle cable from right there. I am going to just wing it, see if we have enough room in all of this. So, with everything disconnected, you gotta lift your intake manifold up, and you gotta shoehorn it out, and then you gotta do this side. You do have to jog this back and forth. You also, if you haven't disconnected your battery, want to be very mindful of touching this with any metal components, because it will spark an arc, because this is live battery voltage. You may not have that on your particular VW. You might have a smaller post down lower. This is an alternator, not a generator. So it's all a game of angles. You got to try and get this one up. The studs that are holding it are an angle like that. You got to try and get this one up. The studs are holding it like that. So it's fighting those angles, and you have limited room under here. So it's fun, is what I'm saying. You don't want to touch this to metal. We've been over that. So from there, just try and play these angles and pull the manifold off of here. And it is possible. The boot also, that's something I should have done first. Probably to help everyone out the most. Pop the boot off and push it in on your manifold while I'm thinking about it. I'm just going to take this clamp all the way off, because otherwise it's going to want to pop off there itself. Oh, magic. Bendo. And we'll slide this boot to the inside, because sometimes there's just enough room to get this manifold off of this manifold casting, end casting off of the primary, but there's not enough room to actually get the boot over it. So, like that. Then you fight that guy off of there, and then there's your manifold casting. There's your marking from where the gasket imprinted on the bottom of the manifold and all that good stuff. And I'm just gonna set that down there. We'll clean it up in a moment and go for the other side. But here is the intake manifold boot, and I don't know if we'll be able to really expose the dry rot on there. You might just have to trust me. Sort of hard to show it, actually. But as you heard earlier with the starter fluid, oh, there you can see some of it. So see that dry rot starting right there? So that's what's causing your manifold leaks. That right there. Same thing on the other side, right? We're gonna push this boot to the middle. We're gonna take this manifold up and off of there. Manifold Set that aside, save it for later, it'll be yummy. And then here's the boot from this side. Discardo the clamp. And let's see, this side was not as bad as the other side, but oh, look at that. That's what we're talking about right there. So you can see how it's on that edge, right? You've got all of that degradation of rubber. And even over here, it's starting to dry rot and degrade all the way around. And don't mind this wetness. This wetness is actually the starter fluid from earlier that got sucked up in there and stuck to the rubber. So you can even see here on the end that this rubber is starting to go out. It's just getting so dry rotted that it's splitting on the end. And that is exactly what we don't want, because as this is in place on here, right, there's a gap between this and this. Here's your intake manifold, and you can see where the rubber dead stops on the inside of the boot. So this is on here, it's expanded over a little bit, and then the rubber is dead stopping, so it's nice and flush all the way around there. Well, what happens when you start to get dry rot on this edge is it gets porous, and it starts to take air on, in, and through, and it actually suck air through the rubber and down in there, and your engine will take air in. You run excessively lean, and you wind up kind of screwing with the atomization of the fuel as well. So none of that's any good. So you know what to do with these. And now we can put the new ones on. This is a different type of material. This is more of a silicone rubber. And the only thing you have to watch out with this boot is not dry rotting, thankfully. You can see it's very pliable, it's very soft, it's totally different than the other one. The thing you have to watch out with this boot is you have to watch out for these clamps with the sharpish kind of corners and edges. You have to watch out for them actually cutting into this silicone rubber. And they love to slice into it. And then at the point they've sliced into it, you're screwed again. So we've already got this side all nice and set up and slid together. We're gonna go ahead and take care of this side. All right, so we're on the cylinder 1-2 side, cleaned up by the head, intake manifold gasket. Drop that right down into place. You got 2 studs, hole faces the outside. Next piece of the pie here, we've got intake boot, the new one. We've got the clamps, we've got them backed all the way off to a point where, you know, they're flush on both sides. Be sure when you're doing this that you face your clamps the proper way. Don't install it like that and then realize that you have to spin it around to try and tighten it. You got one up, one down, whatever. Just think a little bit before you're doing the whole process, and you make yourself feel better. I'm gonna use a little super lube. Now, why super lube? Because it'll help slide this silicone manifold boot up and down. Get a little bit of debris off of there. Up and down on the main manifold section, help it slide into place better. You could install it with the clamp on, I should say. You could install it with the clamp off. However, the edges of these clamps are on the sharp side. And sometimes when you try and press them up and over the silicone boot, you'll just slice into the boot. And that's what we want to avoid doing. So just a little bit of super lube on there. And then pop it over the manifold, nice and easy. And it'll slide down a good bit. And you want to slide it down a good bit because you want it out of the way of the next process. Intake manifold end casting. Cleaned up the bottom, made sure it was nice and ready to go. Cleaned out the whole thing actually in the parts washer. And so now 2 holes, one on either side, 2 studs, line it up, slide it over. When you're lined up and slid over, prop your intake manifold up, right? And make sure that it'll go into position. The whole thing's gonna actually walk over some when we're all said and done. But right now, we're in a good spot. This guy will slide back down, and we're almost there. We've got to tighten these manifolds up before we tighten this manifold up, before we install our stoker pipes and tighten anything else up. You don't want an air leak at the head, and your best chance of preventing that is to get these intake manifolds, get these intake manifolds all nice and tightened up before you ever do anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and get the spring washers on there again, front and rear. And then These ones I've got step down 12 millimeters on, but you may have 13 millimeter nuts on there. It's just gonna be a little bit harder for you to swing a wrench in there. The factory had 13 millimeter on the flats. They're M8 by 1.25, and if you want to go online, get yourself some fancy step down nuts, you can get M8 by 1.25 with 12 millimeter flats, which is what I have here, or you can even get them with 10 millimeter flats and a nice built-in flange. Go ahead and give it some tightening. You can see how it pulled the intake flat, or flatter. Pulled it more upright, I should say. And we're gonna move to the back one. But once you got everything on, then it's sort of a bolt up, the same as unbolt up. In other words, in proper English, you put it back together the same way you took it apart. Generally speaking, if you've gotten this far on your home car, you're an absolute pro. All right, manifold boots. We put super lube on them earlier to make it easier to do this. Gonna slide them up into position, and they step up right like that. Seat them up all the way so that they're nice and secure. We're not gonna tighten them down yet because we still have to put the preheat pipes on. Stoker pipes, exhaust preheat, manifold preheat tubes, however you want to refer to them. We've still got to put those up into place, and after those are in place, we still have to bolt the manifold to its securing. As you can see, it likes to rotate around to that center securing bolt. So I'm just going to fly through that really quick, get all the old silicone off of there, we'll say. New high temp exhaust sealant silicone. This is not really necessary. It's just more of a precautionary thing than anything else. Just try and prevent any little leaks from coming out there. But really, it's a tight enough fit into the manifold that you won't have any leaks. We've got new gaskets. Got the same old bolts, but they're good bolts. They're gonna do us proud. Same thing, light layer silicone gasket sealant around here. This is the high temp stuff. Nice and copperish orange metallic, made by good old Permatex. Number 81878. Ask for it by name. Like literally ask for it by name or part number. Insert this stoker pipe up and in position. Gonna steady the carburetor while I do that because I don't want it going to the wrong spot. We're looking good. Other exhaust gasket up under there. Slap our bolts down in it. You gotta kind of push and pull on these exhaust stoker pipes to line the holes up. Sometimes you have to put a pick down the middle and kind of give them a little bit of a centering bend while you put one of the bolts in, because they do not always line up threadwise. They're not always the most friendly. I see these cross-threaded a lot, like a lot. More often than I would like to. All right, so now those are all bolted up, right? Well, the threads are started. I'm gonna go ahead and bolt it all up. Get these suckers nice and snug. Okay, now that those are snugged up, the center manifold bolt can get held in, right? So we've got those two washers from earlier, got a nylock nut here, and it goes down in the middle. I'm gonna reach my hand up in here, get them all on. It's straight behind the fuel pump, right on back there. .13 millimeter on the wobble extension, just to make life a little easier. And this is where, if you want to, you can kind of position your carburetor up or down. I'm just going to make sure we've got enough clearance from the fan shroud and that we're kind of on the vertical mark of things. So we don't want it anywhere super crazy, but we want it kind of level. So we're pretty level there. Tighten this down in. And notice the entire time I have not tightened up my manifold boots yet because I don't want to put a twist into them. I want everything to be held as firmly in place as I possibly can before tightening it up. And that way the manifold boots will have the least amount of stress on them possible. Nice and snug. And now, tighten up the manifold boots. And you can start with either one that you want. Don't over tighten them. You don't want to slit the silicone. They're a pretty snug fit already. So I'm starting with the little inner one here, just to a point where the clamp won't slide around. Nice and snug. Make sure that the clamp doesn't look like it's dug into the sides or damage the boot in any way, and then go over to this side and do the same thing over here. We should be in good shape with that. So now we're all nice and snug. It's about as tight as that ever gets. It's not really gonna vibrate around much. I'm gonna pop the distributor cap back down, and we're gonna go around our plug wire order here. Again, firing order on the bottom of your alternator pedestal. It goes 1, 4, so this lower plug wire here is gonna be 4, and then 3. So now if we wanted to, we could test it, but I'm gonna go ahead and put the breastplate and everything back down in there and put all my heater and pipes and everything back on, because we should be groovy. Okay, that's the last of it. So I'm gonna clean up my tools and then we can fire it up and we'll see how it behaves. There you have it. We got a nice idle. It's nice and smooth. It's at about 950 RPM, which is a tick higher than I normally go for, but this engine seems to really like it. So I'm not gonna, not give it what it wants. It wants it. And there you go. If you're like, my VW hesitates, my VW wants to crash and burn at idle, my VW hates me, I don't like my VW anymore, I think I should sell it, I want to push it into the lake, you just needed to do new manifold intake boots. That's it. Look at how happy it is. Look at how happy you could be. It's like a Swiss watch. I've heard those are good. Yeah, right. Have fun.